Welcome to Lesson 4, Adding Color. Now I'm going to make this really simple and maybe not follow the lesson exactly, but I want to make sure you really are grasping how to work with color in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm selecting File New, and I want you to do the same, and I'm just leaving this at a letter size document. It really doesn't matter what size your document is. And then I'm clicking OK. I'm going over to select a tool, and I'm clicking and holding down on the rectangle tool to select the star tool. And I'm clicking and dragging to create a star. Next, I want you to notice that down here in the lower portion of your tools panel, you have the default fill of white and the default stroke of black. And if I click on one or the other, they come forward. Now this was the original way to change color ages ago in Illustrator, and it can be slightly confusing because typically you might select a color and maybe I wanted that for the stroke, but I happen to have left the fill forward, so it can be a little bit confusing. Notice that up in your control panel, you can click and select the fill directly from the top or the stroke. Now once I apply the stroke, you'll see that you might not see it a whole lot unless I increase the stroke size. Now the other thing that I want you to note is that there is something else called Appearance. And when I go to Window, I can open up the Appearance panel. The Appearance panel, and I'm going to drag it out so you can see it a little bit better, also gives me the ability to change the stroke and the fill directly on the object, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to track what I'm doing. Not only that, this Appearance panel tracks all the attributes of the item that you have selected, so that when I click on this arrow to expose this, I can see it has the default opacity of being 100%, but I can click on this and I can actually change this right here. So now my stroke is at a 20% opacity. The great thing about using the Appearance is that it gives you the opportunity to save combinations of strokes, stroke widths, colors, and fills. And we go into this later in the book a lot, but I want you to get this concept down right here. If I go to Window and I select Graphic Styles, now mine's already checked so it's up there, but if yours isn't, click on it. You'll see that you come up with a panel that has different save styles in them. And I can drag this Appearance over, drop it right into Graphic Styles. And now every time I want that same style, I can just simply click and it comes back and it remembers that style for me. You can try out other graphic styles to see some of the default save styles that are already here, or go back to the one that you created. The point being that you can change the color and the fill and the stroke width, all that information, and then save it is really important. Now let's go back to just general color. I'm going to close my Appearance panel and then go to my Swatches panel, and you'll see that I have a default set of colors in my Swatches panel. You'll also see that if I click on the panel menu, that I can open up additional swatch libraries and see a whole bunch available to me here. Or I can click on the Swatch Libraries menu, which provides me with the exact same swatch libraries here. Now, if you choose to use an additional swatch library, like for instance, maybe you want to bring in Pantone colors, you would go to Color Books, and then you would select perhaps Pantone Solid Coated, and it would come up as a separate panel. Now, in my panel menu, I can click on here and choose that I want to see this as a small list view, because perhaps somebody provided you with a Pantone number that they want you to find. So I might type up here Pantone 201, and there's my color. And then if I select something, I can just click on it to apply that color. Now it applied it to the stroke because that's what I had last open. Couple things to keep in mind, little helpful tricks. If you press Shift X, it will swap your fill and your stroke. If you simply press X, it will just move one forward or the other. If you press D, not Command D, just the letter D, that brings you back to the default fill and stroke. So for instance, if I press Command A or Control A if I'm on the PC, and then simply press D, I can bring everything back to black and white. Now one more thing I want to cover. I'm selecting my selection tool, clicking off and selecting one item, and I'm applying a color. I'm also increasing the stroke so you can see that color a little bit better. I've used red for that stroke. I'm also going to create some additional stars and use the red for the fill. And make a few more of these. Now, what if somebody comes to me and says, I need to change that red to something that's a little bit more orange? I still have this star selected. I go up and I can double click on the color, and you'll notice that if I change this color, and I can see the builds here, and click OK, that it only affects that one star. Now, if I come back to this color and I double click on it and I select it to be global, any future objects that I apply that color property to are dynamically linked back to that swatch. So for instance, if I switch this so that I have a orange star and no stroke, and just make a bunch of stars, and then decide I want to change them, I can double click on that. I can make the change, click OK, and they're all updated at the same time. If you ever decide that later you need a global color, it's best to select your color. So I'll click on this red to bring it forward, select same, fill color, and then go to select a global color, or change your color to global and then select it. Now they are all dynamically linked to that swatch. Keep in mind that when you use Pantone colors, they have that triangle down in the lower right hand corner indicating that they are already set up to be global colors. They also have a spot in them if you selected the spot color, because that indicates that when it prints, it's not going to print out of a combination of multiple colors, but it's going to be one ink color so that your printer can put the right ink into the press and then run your job. So in this lesson, you discovered how to use swatches and apply color in Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud.